In this video, we'll be talking about Polya's 4 steps. This is a problem-solving framework that's common in mathematics. The 4 steps are understand the problem, devise a plan, carry out the plan, and look back. A friend once pointed out something to me that really resonated, and she said that this is really descriptive of the problem-solving process, but not prescriptive. It's not a prescription for how you solve problems. So once we've solved a problem, we can look back and see that we indeed had to understand it, come up with a plan, carry out the plan, and then look back to make sure that it was correct. So even though this doesn't tell us how to solve a problem, it's really important to be aware of the steps that are involved in problem solving. Let's try to flesh these out just a little bit. So when trying to understand the problem, stop and think if you know all the words in the problem and what they really mean. Here I'm talking about word problems. We're going to be doing a lot of word problems. But in real life, do you understand all of the constraints, what's going on in your problem? Think about the information that you have. Do you have enough information? Not all problems can be solved. And some problems are convoluted by having lots of extra information. Think about restating the problem in your own words. If you can paraphrase it, it might help you understand it. And sometimes just drawing a picture, not to solve it, but just to figure out what's going on, can be really helpful. So once you understand the problem, you come up with a plan. That's going to be a huge part of this class, where we're going to be building our toolbox of strategies. Because the truth of the matter is that if you can recognize that the problem you're faced with is similar to another problem you've already solved, then you're on a great trajectory to solve the problem. So maybe you can use a strategy that you successfully used in the past. Or also, sometimes when we're solving problems, we have to go through multiple iterations. And in that, you might be able to instantly reject a strategy because you know that it won't work. Carrying out the plan usually isn't the hardest part. When I look at word problems, students will say, well, just tell me how to solve it, then I can do it. So we have to execute our plan, work it out, and that can be difficult, but usually it's the coming up with a plan that's a little bit harder. Don't get discouraged when you're doing this. In math and science, we go through so many failed attempts, and that's okay. That's also teaching us what not to do and helping us understand in general mathematics and problems better. So don't get discouraged, but also be thoughtful as you do this. If you're going down a path that you realize isn't going to work, it's okay to set aside your plan, try something else, and move forward from there. Finally, make sure your answer makes sense. Don't just say, oh, I got to a number and celebrate. Think about, is that reasonable in the context? Maybe you can check it. Maybe you can do an estimate, or maybe it's just common sense. If I'm solving interest on a bank account and I come up with earning billions of dollars, for my financial situation, that doesn't make sense. So sometimes it's just a common sense thing. So as we're thinking about these steps, I also want to point out that it's not necessarily sequential or linear. We don't always go 1, 2, 3, 4. Sometimes in the middle of carrying out the plan, we backtrack and go to a different plan. Or in the middle of carrying out the plan, you realize that you didn't understand the problem. And so you've got to go back and try to understand the problem. So we can do these out of order and repeat them and go through different cycles. But in the end, we'll have to understand it, have some kind of plan, carry out the plan, and then hopefully make sure that it makes sense. So in this class, like I said, we'll be solving a ton of problems, and a big goal is to build your problem-solving toolbox so you get better and better at problem solving.